And I don't recommend this for everybody. It's just what worked for me.
Look, I don't do public shaming.
We were just this lovely, plump family.
You have to live life right now.
Hi, and welcome to Living Large in America. I am your host, Lise Quintana, and with me today is Sam Stiers, a writer from Boulder, Colorado. Hi, Samantha.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. How about you?
I'm doing swell. Is it beautiful in Colorado right now?
It's really sunny. There's tons of snow on the ground. There's like 2 feet of snow on the ground, but it's sunny.
Okay, so how much do you weigh right now?
Right now, I weigh 237 pounds.
Okay. And is that like the most that you've weighed, or have you come down? Or
No, the most I've ever weighed is like a little more. I would say like I think it was 264. So.
And has your weight fluctuated a lot over your adult life?
Yeah. So my lowest weight as an adult or late teens was like 110. And then, going up to the 264. It kind of depended on what mix of medication I was on and what was happening with that. And it's always seemed quite out of my control,
So what kind of meds are you on, like antidepressants?
No, like mood stabilizers and antipsychotics.
Okay.
So, the thing with this one medication that caused most of the weight gain is that with this drug, risperidone, it's typical for people, like it's not unusual for people to gain like 100 pounds on this drug. And I was just one of the unlucky people who had this kind of cataclysmic weight gain.
That is so surprising to me. Like, how can that be an acceptable side effect?
I think it has to do with the stigma of people who are diagnosed with schizophrenia and psychosis. I think that if this were a drug, if this were an antidepressant, or if this were a drug for asthma or something, it never would be considered acceptable. And I think people kind of think, oh, well, you got these young people with psychosis or schizophrenia or whatever the diagnosis is, and then that must be so horrific that they'd rather, gain 100 pounds than have to deal with those symptoms.
I don't know. There are some antidepressants that have a very similar side effect, that
Right.
Gaining massive weight gain. And I know people right now that are struggling with just being on garden variety antidepressants and cannot stop eating. And this is a very new thing for them, and they're finding it really disturbing.
Yeah, I was on antidepressants for a little while. They didn't make me gain weight, but I did not know that was could happen with garden variety antidepressants too. The thing is, for me, is the insatiable appetite. Like, I'm never not hungry. I can be nauseated and hungry at the same time. I can wake up at 3 a.m. and I'm like, all right, I'm ready to eat a meal, because it shuts off. I think I've read some research on it. It like shuts off the part of your brain that tells you when you're full or something like that.
Wow. So you end up sort of being like, and this is going to come out sounding wrong, but I always think that's the way that dogs operate. Like, dogs can eat until they vomit. Like,
Yes.
It never occurs to them to stop eating.
Yes, like I will eat and then I'll be like, wait a minute, what did I just do? I'm so full, but the full only lasts for like a few seconds until I'm hungry again.
Wow.
So I'm surprised I don't vomit more, actually.
So did your healthcare provider talk to you about this risk before putting you on this drug?
I was not put on the drug voluntarily. So I was 17. I didn't have any right to consent. I was in, an institution for troubled teenagers. And, I was told it would, quote unquote, give me the munchies, but I was not told that the munchies would be very hardcore.
Oh, man. Knowing that the stuff that you are experiencing is really down to these meds that you're on, that this is not like you don't have a lot of control over this. Do you still experience the stigma, a judgment for your weight from everybody?
Very much so.
Oh.
And because people will say things to me like, well, people don't believe that I'm hungry all the time. I'll hear things like, but are you stomach hungry or mouth hungry? And, I even had someone who was working with me who was like, oh, you've got to go to this 12-step program for compulsive overeaters. And I did that for several months. And my sponsor was like, well, you're not eating very much. Are you hungry? And I was like, I'm always hungry. I can't tell the difference. It's like, I'm getting a little ranting and raving here, but it's like, it's very frustrating when people don't understand that this isn't some kind of emotional eating thing. This is like, my body is telling me that I'm ravenously hungry.
I did OA for many years, and I actually do credit OA with helping me work out a lot of my emotional issues around food. But yeah, you're right. If the reason that you're eating is not emotional issues around food, OA is not going to do anything for you.
Yeah, I mean, what they did is like, I wound up on this really strict eating plan, and I did lose weight. I must have lost 80 pounds in OA, but then I gained it back as soon as I wasn't in there anymore.
Yeah, I similar story. I lost a little over 90 pounds in OA, and then I moved from Arizona to California, and I didn't have my OA group. So I was also doing Gray Sheet, and I didn't have my network anymore, and there are no groups in California, at least not in the Bay Area, that did Gray Sheet, which, like, I depended on that sort of style of eating and the support of my tribe there, and without that, just started right back to my old habits.
Right. Yeah. I found it really hard to kind of humiliating to have to tell someone everything that I ate. My food's my business. I don't want to tell anyone about it.
Yeah, and I think that like that's part of, and I've heard this in a million diets before, like part of gaining control over what you eat is, first of all, just acknowledging what you eat. So if you write it down, you're okay. But I feel like OA is great for getting you into some good habits, but I feel like there are some people who take it a little bit far. There was one woman at the meetings that I went to in Phoenix she was a lovely person, and she had had great success. She had been in OA for like 25 years, and every single meeting when we went around and sort of said, hi, I'm Jane, I'm a compulsive overeater, and then everyone would say how much weight they'd lost, and she would say, and I've been abstinent for 10 years. I slipped 10 years ago and had a roll with dinner. And like 15 years before that, she had been abstinent. And I'm like, you've been beating yourself up for 10 years over a dinner roll. This seems messed up.
Yeah, definitely.
So how long have you been on meds?
Well, since I was 17, and I'm 34 now, so
17 years.
Yeah.
All right. So how fast did the weight come on once you started the meds?
I would say I was probably gaining a couple pounds a week at the beginning of it. And I know that sounds impossible, but that's
oh no. Oh no, it doesn't.
Happening. I mean, and I had actually been starving myself. I'd actually been, kind of anorexic. So everyone was kind of like relieved at first that I was gaining a little weight. And then they kind of went, "Oh, this is gonna be extreme, isn't it?"
Oh man, how tall are you?
I'm only 5'2".
Okay, so 110 and 5'2", that's kind of a low normal.
Yeah, I was low normal, but I'm kind of voluptuous, so I was a skinny 110. It probably should have been like my normal weight was maybe like 130 or something.
Yeah, that sounds like it would have been a reasonable weight for a 5'2" person.
Yeah.
Nowadays, so you've been on this for 17 years, you've been dealing with this for 17 years. Have you struck any kind of an emotional balance between, your need to take these meds and the effect that they have on you?
I would say it's something I resent kind of every day. I've tried to come off of them, and I've tried to reduce them, and I'm involved with the Hearing Voices Network and a lot of kind of groups that are not quite anti-med, but like people making their own choices and stuff like that. And I think there's, I've encountered a lot of people who have been on a lot of meds and found some other way to live and not been on them, but that's just not been my reality. I feel like I need to take them at this point. I'm kind of scared that of the health effects. I'm scared that my lifespan will be shortened.
By the weight or by the meds themselves?
Both.
There are lots of people who are living perfectly healthy lives at a weight higher than they feel that they should be. But that's a scary thought. That's a scary thought, and I can understand why you would resent the meds for that.
Yeah, I mean, I would, I don't know. I guess I don't totally hate being fat. Like, I kind of find my fat comforting. Like, it's not like a horrible thing to me. I do feel like shame that gets put on you by society, but I also kind of feel like this is my body. It's kind of fat and cuddly. I'm comfortable in it. But at the same time, I wonder how my life would have been a little different if I could have moved through society as a thin person.
Yeah, that's a weird thing. You probably had a taste of that when you lost 80 pounds at OA and you walked back through the skinny bubble and you're back in skinny society and going, hey, this is different.
Definitely.
How were things different for you once you had lost that 80 pounds? Did you feel different about yourself?
Mostly I got a lot of praise from everyone who knew me. And I think I'm proud of a lot of things that I've accomplished in life, like my writing and I'm proud of, coming back from, mental health challenges, but none of that was significant to anyone compared to how wonderful it was that I lost 80 pounds. I have never in my life been so praised for anything as for losing that 80 pounds. Every time I saw acquaintances or friends, it was, oh, have you lost more weight? Oh, those clothes look great on you. Oh, this, that, the other. And I lapped it up. I was just so eager for like the positive attention. And then when I started to gain it back again, there was just silence.
As though you had failed. You were now a moral failure.
They were being too polite to talk to me about having gained it back. They were trying to politely ignore it.
I love the thought that you're happy in your body. You don't mind the fat that's on your body. It's comforting to you and it makes you feel good. I love that, and I am sad that the people that are around you are not more affirming of that.
Yeah, I mean, they're not. I'm not one of those. I mean, the people around me they're okay at this point. Like, I don't get a lot of like lectures about how I should lose weight or anything like that. It is kind of comforting to me to be in a heavier body. It's grounding. I think that when I lost the 80 pounds and like before I went on medication, when I was thinner, I felt very ungrounded, and I felt like I was just about to kind of float off into outer space. And I feel like my fat tethers me to the earth.
That is fascinating. I've never thought of it that way. That is super cool. Yeah, I know that when my younger kid was really tiny, she has always been a little stick figure. And when she was really tiny, I don't remember how it came up, but I said something about how skinny she was. Because she also, like, from the time she was little, she doesn't eat. She just is not an eater. And I said something about, oh, maybe one day I'll be skinny. And she said, no, Mommy, I don't want you to be skinny. I want you to be plumpy.
Aww.
Just because she liked that comfortableness. She liked that cuddliness.
Yeah.
And I think that you're right. I think that there is something very tactily comforting about a larger body.
Right.
Yeah, that was something that it might have been Guy Ritchie. It was one of Madonna's ex-husbands or ex-lovers or whoever who was deriding Madonna, who is at, I want to say she's 60 now, something like that, and still, very, very, very fit and very muscular. But, he said that she was just a bag of bones. And, that feels like the media ideal is bag of bones. But
Yeah.
but that's not a human ideal. That's not a comforting thing to cling on to.
No, I don't want to cuddle with bones.
Yeah, I had heard it described many years ago as, somebody sleeping with a person who was really thin, described it as sleeping with a bicycle.
Oh. Well, nothing against really thin people, but it's not the body I feel comfortable in. And it took me losing the 80 pounds and then gaining it back to realize, I gained this 80 pounds back, not just because I'm hungry all the time, but because I really feel safe in this body.
Safe from what?
That's an interesting question. It's very primal. I think I feel like if I'm in a larger body, I might kind of scare people away. There's a strength to it, or a power. And I don't just mean scare away potential rapists or something, although that may be part of it, but there's a power to being large. There's an energy and there's a power.
I love this. It's interesting because, one of the things that was people were raging about a couple of years ago, fairly recently, and they still rage about it, is the whole manspreading. And the notion that men feel like they are allowed to take up as much space as they want. So I'm loving on the notion of inhabiting a larger body, just you get to take up as much space as you want.
Yeah, I read this, it was an interview with, I think it was some kind of intuitive health practitioner, and she said, sometimes an overweight woman will come into my office and I'll say to her, there's nothing that you need to do to lose weight because your energy needs a larger body right now. You need to be in a larger body because your energy is so big. And I kind of think that's true with me.
I love that.
I've got a big energy.
What a great way of putting it. And I'm thinking about so many people when I first talked about starting this podcast, so many people who reached out to me about, their whole weight thing. And a lot of them feel like, yeah, you know what? I'm fat and I am okay with that. I like myself. I'm feeling comfortable with myself. I'm feeling happy about myself. And I am occasionally outraged that society feels like they need to tear that down.
Yeah. I mean, there's the inconveniences of my weight. I can't walk up a flight of stairs a bunch of times, I get out of breath. I mean, it's hard to kind of get up from a seated position sometimes, but so being fat can kind of be a pain in the neck sometimes, but as as anyone could probably say, but it's worth it because of this large energy that gets contained.
This is blowing my mind. This is really making me sort of reframe a lot of my thinking. And I'm loving that so much. Just thinking about you need a big enough container for all that you are.
Yeah. And I think, maybe as women we aren't supposed to be as much. And so we're supposed to have, little souls and little bodies or something like that. I don't know. But
I do think that a lot of the insistence on women staying kind of small and petite is really about disempowerment, about keeping women sort of weak and small. And that's one of the reasons why I have never minded being on the larger side. Just, I'm not weak, I am not small, and I won't let anyone make me that way.
Exactly.
And honestly, even though I am losing weight, I do not have it in my genes to be willowy. That ain't happening.
No.
I'm 5'7", so I'm already taller than average. And my family is Scottish and Mexican, neither of which are really willowy sort of folks. And so I'm going to be stocky no matter what.
Yeah, yeah. I come from a long line of larger people. I've had relatives on both sides of my family who were over 400 pounds.
So genetically, this was going to happen.
That's the interesting thing is like there's a real chance that even if I hadn't gone on the risperidone, this may have happened anyway.
So in your house, what was food like growing up?
My parents were health food fanatics. I remember one of my earliest memories is somebody offering me Cheerios. I was about 3 and someone offered me Cheerios and I said, no, I can't eat those. They have sugar in them. So it's like we couldn't even have Cheerios when I was little because they had sugar.
And those are famously the no sugar cereal. Wow.
Yeah. And so, but it was actually really great in a lot of ways. We lived in the mountains and my father had a garden and every night we ate a salad out of the garden. We ate potatoes out of the garden. We ate, a lot. I mean, we had these home cooked meals every night. I think that I've always loved to eat, and I might have been a fat kid if I hadn't been living in such a kind of food controlled household.
It's so hard to tell. Like I have known people who have grown up in households where there was always an abundance of sweets, cookies, cakes, desserts, and they were thin. They just grew up thin. Always a mystery to me. You can just never tell from, the way that people interacted with food when they were younger. You can never tell who's going to be thin and who's not.
I remember being about 6 and my father telling me, he said, you eat for entertainment. He said, you're only supposed to eat when you're hungry, not when you're bored. And so I think that shows me that there was a tendency, and this is kind of what the OA people were trying to tell me. There was a tendency in me to overeat before the medication came along.
Right. Wow. When you were 6.
Yeah.
Huh. Now, I know from my own children, I have 2 daughters, and I know that one of them, she would grow out a little, so she would get a little stouter, and then she would shoot up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I just never let myself worry about it until, after she was a teenager and had kind of reached as tall as she was going to get. Because it seemed like a waste of time to freak out about it before she was even done growing. So that's weird.
Yeah, and the purpose, I don't think my family was not like a fat phobic family. They didn't want me to be made fun of or anything.
Yeah, but how do you, teaching children about nutrition through shame seems counterproductive.
I guess so, yeah. But, I kept eating for entertainment. I kept doing my thing, I mean, I don't think it really made a difference to me.
Well, yeah, I just feel like, if you are trying to shame people, honestly, if shame worked to control people's eating and make them thinner, we would all be sticks.
Right, exactly. Yeah. After I gained 100 pounds, though, my parents were both really great. My mother would take me to get clothes and she'd say, "Oh, you look so beautiful in that." Or my father would say, my father would, be nice about it. And, I don't think I ever really felt shamed by my family.
That is cool. That makes a huge difference. I have had other guests who have been like that, who have, they have no shame. And in fact, one of them, my first guest, Lara McCuskey, actively rejects anyone's attempt to shame her for anything. And she will throw it back in people's faces. Nope, you don't get to shame me. And
right.
I feel super jealous about that. We live in such a shame culture.
We do. I was always the weird kid in school. I think I got so much shame at such an early age from people outside my family that I got a little bit immune to it.
I totally see that. I also kind of got so much crap from people outside of my family, not for my size because I was kind of a smaller kid growing up, but because I grew up with people of color. My parents were divorced in an area where we were like the only kids in school who had divorced parents. And I kind of ended up feeling by the middle of grade school like, okay, I'm never going to fit in with this crowd. They're never going to be my friends and they're never going to like me. So I may as well, if I'm going to live my life to please anyone, I'll live it to please myself.
Exactly. I think I had that attitude by about 5th grade.
Yeah. I think that has served me well as an adult. Because, nowadays, the people that reject me, the people who don't approve of me for whatever reason, I just no longer give a shit.
Right. And it's hard to know. For me, I don't know if some of that's like a defense mechanism or if I really genuinely don't give a shit. But I'm beginning to suspect that I really genuinely don't give a shit.
Well, why should you? And functionally, what is the difference between it just being a defense mechanism and honestly not giving a shit? Like, it feels the same way. I feel like that would be, if other people could sort of cultivate that whole, like, I don't need to deal with you. You are not my people. That would be amazing.
I think that if I'd kind of been a really popular, like, accepted person and then I'd gained the weight, it might have been devastating. But as it was, I was just kind of like, oh, this is a new thing now.
Do you think that if you had been really popular, if you had been, one of those kids, like, would that have made you more ashamed as you gained weight?
Yes. I mean, my self-esteem in some ways, I had that fuck you attitude, but at the same time, my self-esteem was so low from just being different when I was growing up, that, being fat was just like another thing,
Yeah. Yeah. And I wonder how much of this, like how much of your ability to not worry about it, is just due to your psychological differences. Like, you've got bigger fish to fry, other than not being hugely popular. So
I always had bigger fish to fry.
Yeah. Wow. So this had a huge impact on your life.
Yeah. I mean, in some ways, it became my identity. So it was, and that was an identity that was kind of superseded the identity as fat. So it was like, I was fat, but moreover, I was a mental patient. That was a stigma that was more intense than the stigma of fat that I was dealing with.
And it makes me wonder how many people tangentially around you sort of lump those two things together.
I do think they get lumped together. I mean, at least in my case, at least for me. I feel like, when I go out in public, I feel like I don't pass as like a psychologically normal person because of my weight. And, Boulder's the skinniest city in the nation.
Really?
So, yes. There simply are not fat people in Boulder. There aren't places to buy plus size clothing. You have to order it online. You can go to the thrift stores and there's no plus size clothing available because people aren't getting rid of it because people don't have it. And so when I go out in public in my strange plus size clothes and feel like people read me as different psychologically because of my weight.
That is just unfortunate because I feel like, it's one thing to be psychologically different, and then it's another thing for people to say, oh, well, she's fat because she's got psychological problems.
Yeah, and I think people probably say that too sometimes.
And that just adds to this ability for a lot of people to other fat people.
Yes. Like, there must be something wrong if you're that weight, kind of thinking.
And I will say that even, like, fat people do it to each other. Like, yeah, I'm fat, but I'm not that fat. Or I'm fat, but I'm not, I don't have your problems. And it is so destructive. It is so destructive.
Yeah.
Because we've been taught to hate ourselves.
Right. Here's an interesting thing. The way I interact with people since I got fat has totally changed.
How so?
Before I gained the weight, I was extremely shy. I mean, of course, I'm always going to be introverted, but I was so shy I could barely speak to anyone. I had no friends in high school because I was paralyzingly shy, and I was just the shyest, delicate, doe. People described me as like doe-like. I was just this doe-like little girl, and I gained 100 pounds, and I started getting outgoing. I started getting funny. People started, telling me I should take up stand-up, start being a stand-up comedian or something. And I got this like funny fat girl thing going on. And then at the same time, I had a friend who was really overweight the whole time we were growing up, and then she lost the weight, and she had been funny, and outgoing. And then when she lost the weight, she kind of got, shy and doe-like. So I'm wondering, like, do you have any ideas of what's going on there? Like, I mean,
I think this goes back to what we were talking about before, about this cultural expectation for women to not take up space. And so when you physically conform to that, women are supposed to be small and delicate and quiet, maybe it's easier. Maybe part of like, oh, I am experiencing societal acceptance because of my physicality, then I should also adopt this societally acceptable persona. But once you have stepped outside of the physicality that is societally acceptable, then fuck it, you can be whatever persona you like. And,
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that's super interesting because for me, I have not had an experience of when I have lost weight, I have become, quieter or, more reticent or anything. If anything, I'm louder and more in people's face.
Yeah, I think honestly, if I lost the weight, I think I would still be like in people's face, and I would still be cracking jokes and stuff, because I think like the cat's out of the bag at this point.
Yeah, people know that you're actually a cool person. Sorry.
My funny fat girl persona is gonna like come back in, or it could pop back in my body.
Well, that would be cool. Like everyone could have like whatever energy they wanted, feel positive about themselves at whatever size they are. So even women who are tiny little people could still, have big boisterous personalities and have that be okay. What I've seen on my own sort of fat journey is that once you pass a certain size, you become sort of invisible.
Yes.
And the only way to become visible to people again is to really, pile on the personality so that they can't deny that you're there. And, maybe that's part of it. Maybe, just, hi, I'm a big person and I'm trying to get you to see me. And you end up having to be louder and bigger.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody about there's this idea of positive attention and negative attention, and that when you are fat, you are invisible for the purposes of positive attention, but you are a prime target. You have a target on your face for negative attention, and that as you lose weight, that switches.
Yeah, well, if you were, 100 pounds overweight, that's the first thing anyone sees about you,
Yep.
And so maybe I feel like I have to come at people with some more positive aspects of my personality, to kind of counterbalance the negative attention. Exactly.
Which is sad, because that just means that people have to overcome sort of whatever their own bullshit is in order to get to know actual you.
Right.
You can't hear it, but I'm just over here shaking my head in disgust.
Yeah.
And that's our show. I would like to thank my guest, Samantha Stiers, and thank you, my dear listeners. Living Large in America is written and produced by Lisa Quintana. Our music was composed by Cambo Smith. If you have a story about weight, body image, size discrimination, or fat phobia you'd like to tell, drop us a line, info@livinglargeinamerica.com. You can subscribe to this show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, and most other podcast apps. If you like the show, could you please give us a rating on Apple Podcasts? It really, really helps. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk again in 2 short weeks. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other.